And welcome everybody. Glad to have you. We're going to start here in about 1 minute. Go ahead and log in. PIN number is at the top. My name is Keith Barker. We do these every Sunday. I want to give a shout out to Dan, aka Blendinator, for covering the office hour yesterday. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we do a office hour on Discord, and then every Sunday at 11 a.m. we have a quiz. I've got 7 or 8 questions for you today, security related, and we'll spend a few moments afterwards on the Discord server if you have any follow-up questions about the questions. All right, glad you're here. All right. If somebody steps in late and they're asking about the PIN number, it should be at the bottom of the screen. It is 2951722. Please, if you want to note that, you can respond to anybody who asks about that. Also, if people are answering questions in the queue, you can just gently remind them to join the game at kahoot.it or use their app, either way. All right. It's good to be here. Thank you very, very much for showing up. Here we go. Here's our first question in this Kahoot regarding security, also password related, much of it. And here we go. Question number 1. What is true for an SSH login? And thanks to Soren and also to Blendinator for the super stickers. This question I recycled from another quiz or so, but it did touch on several points, and I modified it also. Let me think. Is it this one or the other one? Let's just talk about this output, and then we can cover that a little bit later. In this output here, what is true regarding SSH login? Just as a quick note, AAA new model is enabled, and this is the default method list for logins. However, on this VTY line, we have this method list called VTY, which refers to this method list right here, which uses the local database. And that's why the local database is used. Now, if you're brand new to this kind of an output or this kind of configuration from a Cisco router or a switch, no sweat, but this is the type of knowledge that Cisco wants you to be aware of. Maybe you don't have to configure the whole thing from scratch, but you definitely want to be aware of how that operates and how it works. So congrats to everybody who knocked this out of the park. And here is the leaderboard. It is Eager Chicken. No wonder he's doing so well. Eager Chicken's Eager, followed by Green Octopus, Soaring Turtle, Proud Pony, and Quick Alpaca. I'm glad everyone's here. Here's question number 2. What is used to protect plain text passwords in the running config? Oh my goodness. Nailed it. This is so fantastic. Great. Also, there's a few questions with clarifying questions in the queue regarding some of these questions so far. Right after this quiz, join me in the Discord server. There's a link in my description for this video. We'll just go over there in the Cisco CCNA voice room. It's free. You can chat with me live right there, and we can reinforce any questions you have. I think it'll be a more efficient way to handle all the questions that come up regarding these questions. So as far as plain text passwords, what are we talking about? Let's see how many there are. Right here, there's 1, and there's 2, and that's it. So this right here is a enable secret, which are secret. This will be an MD5 hash, so that won't be stored in plain text. So this password and this password right there, they would both be protected with the service password encryption command. So that'll encrypt the existing ones, and it'll encrypt future plain text passwords. And that's really not secure from a perspective of cryptography, but it's a great step if somebody's doing this. If they're looking over your shoulder and they look at your config, they won't be able to, just from visual representation, be able to tell what it is if we use service password encryption. So I call it level 7, which is like encryption light, but it does protect against somebody just seeing it, and if they can't remember what it is, as far as the characters, they won't be able to later reverse engineer it. Okay, let me clear that off, and great job. Here's question number 3. It is simply this. It's multiple select. In addition to the password, like let's say we log on as a user, we supply the password. What else in addition to the password could be used as part of multi-factor authentication, or MFA? All right, I got a lot of people with blue. Let's talk about that just for a moment. So multi-factor authentication means, and it's also sometimes just called 2FA, two-factor authentication. It's taking requirements from 2 or more categories or 2 or more factors. And the 3 most popular factors, I will call them A, B, and C. A would be something that you know. And something you know would be like a password or a birth date, if you know that. So a password, a birth date, the street you grew up on, which would be like a security question. So that's something you know. So multi-factor authentication is used at least one from two different categories or factors. Section B would be something that the user has. Something the user has would like a chip or a card or a code, like a one-time password code that's generated for them. And that would be one factor or one category. And category C would be something the user is. Now there's variants on this, like how the user walks or how they type and so forth. But most of the time when I think of what the user is, I think of like biometrics, like a finger scan or an eye scan or something similar. So to do multi-factor authentication, you have to have one from here and one from here, or you could have one from here, one from here, but you have to have at least two from different categories. So if they already had a password that's required, you can't use something the user knows. That'd be the answer to their security question. And you can't use a birth date because that's something the user knows. So you could use a mobile app with a push notification or a card, and that would be something from a different category. And that's why that is the answer that it is. All right, here we go. I think we're almost halfway done. Here's question number 4 of 7. Multiple select. Which of the following are true regarding this port? I'm talking about port gigabit or interface, gigabit 2/0/3. And it's on a switch, so they refer to them as ports either way. Wow, how did we get so many people with yellow? Let's take a look real quick. Which of the following are true regarding this port? Well, let's bring Keith, let's bring up the port. Let's take a look. Get my pen out of the way. All right, let's take a look. Which of the following are true? So for gig 2/0/3 on this multi-layer switch or this switch, we have ARP inspection enabled for VLAN 600-800. This port is a member VLAN 777, so ARP inspection is enabled and it's not trusted. So let's see here. That's true. From an ARP inspection perspective, it's not trusted. It's also true from a DHCP snooping perspective. It's also not trusted. So that's why blue is true. And let's see here. ARP packets without correct IP to MAC bindings are denied, which is exactly what ARP inspection does. So that's why this is true. But how come we have so many people on 59? Maximum MAC addresses learned, it will be 2. Oh, I know I did here. The problem with this configuration is that port security is using two maximum addresses. The action is restrict. However, it is not enabled. You might say, Keith, I see the config. It's right here. It's enabled. It's not enabled. You have to also type in switch port space port-security enter to actually enable the feature. So right now, switch port security is not enabled on that port. It would be easy to fix, but it's not. And so that was the point I was trying to drive home there. All right, let's move on. And we have, 3 more questions. Here's question 5. Which security measure would best protect a port that is being used to connect to an AP? Oh my gosh, there's only 20 seconds on the clock. That was a mistake. Good luck, everybody. I'm sorry about the time slip there. The default timer on these questions is 20 seconds. I forgot to increase that to a minute. But if you're guessing, you had an equal opportunity to guess there. Port security would be the best option for an AP as far as access control list, or protect against spoofing with ARP messages, or having an attacker connect. Really, with port security, we could lock it down to just the IP address for the access point. And then the access point would tunnel everything over to via CapWap over to the wireless LAN controller. Again, my apologies on that short response window. I will fix that for the future. And I think we have just 2 more. Here we go. Question number 6. What does stateful inspection provide? Boom. Okay, let's talk about what that does. I had a question the other day, and here it was from the blueprint. Somebody asked me, how much do we need to know about firewalls? And I was like, firewalls. And I think, let me just do a Control F here. I'm on Windows, so firewall. There we go. Oh, right there. Yeah. Next generation firewalls and IPs. And it's to explain the role and function of those devices. You're not expected to configure a firepower, next generation firewall or a firepower management center, but you should be able to describe the role and function of them, and that's what this question is all about. So let me take a moment and let's just talk about a device like this. So this is our firewall, and over here on the left we have a network. Maybe it's the inside of our network, and out here we have I'll just draw a cloud. Let me take that out. Out here represents the rest of the world. The internet. And so maybe this is interface 1/1, this is interface 1/3, and we have zones that we set up. So if we have a user like right here that's sitting at this computer, if we have a firewall which just does like access control list only, then we have to, put those access control lists on the interfaces, and then we have to be prepared to allow or deny certain types of traffic. So if a user goes out, this goes out to a web server, the source port, the TCP source port is going to be some high numbered port, because when this computer goes out to a web server to start the three-way handshake, it's just going to grab some high numbered port that it currently isn't using. So let's say it chooses 3429 as a source port, and the destination TCP port is going to be, if it's going to an SSL server, it's going to be 443. And so that traffic would need to be allowed out. So if we were locking it all down with access control list, that might be kind of tricky because we can't really control the source port because we don't know what it's going to be, but we could do the destination. So that would be an example of what's called packet filtering. And then the reply traffic, holy cow, the reply traffic, if we were doing an access control list, we'd have to say traffic from 443 going to any port because we don't know exactly what the client's going to choose. It's a nightmare to do, real traffic flow control just with access control list because it's not flexible enough. Okay, so that's packet filtering with access control list. The next option is to use this option right here, stateful inspection, which most firewalls do today, including your little firewall at your home or small office. And with a stateful firewall, what it does, in fact, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I took a trip, and I just got back yesterday, I got back yesterday. I went to Florida. I live in Nevada, and I went to Florida. I took a few of my adult kids, to Disney World. A lot of fun. Went to Universal Studios. I put in like 20,000 steps a day. Absolutely ton of fun. When I used to go to like amusement parks in the old days, like 20, 30, 40 years ago, yes, 40 years ago, what would happen is you'd have the parking lot, then you have the gate right there, and then you have the park. And so you give them your ticket, you go into the park, you have a good time. And if you need to go out to the parking lot, oh my gosh, I put park on both sides. I put cars out here. Because that could be a car park, which would be totally normal. So those are the cars out here in the parking lot, and this is the actual amusement park. It didn't hit me till just a moment ago. I use the same word. So if we went into the amusement park and then we had to go out, they would stamp our hand on the way back out. So that way when we come back, like after a break or we go around, they could see our hand stamp and say, oh, you were already inside the park. You can come back in. And they would let us back in. Well, that's what a stateful inspection firewall does. As users go out to the internet, let's say there's a server, and let's say he's going out to TCP port 80, which is the default port on the server for HTTP. As that traffic goes through, the firewall says, I will remember you, in a much faster flavor. It says, I'm looking at the source address, the destination address, the ports involved, and then when the reply traffic comes back, let's say it's a three-way handshake with a SYN and an ACK, and also another SYN there, then a final acknowledgement. When those responses come back from the firewall, its default attitude is say, no traffic from the outside coming in is allowed, except if it matches the stateful table due to stateful inspection, and that dynamically allows the reply traffic coming back in. And that's why this answer is correct. Now that's a great feature, and it's been around for at least 2 decades, maybe more. And most firewalls support that, most route devices support that, and that's great. However, in today's environments where we need to look at the application layer, so here's layer 4 with its TCP, UDP, etc. Above that, we have application layer services like SSH, like HTTP, like HTTPS, and then it gets even more granular with specific functions or services within those protocols. And there's more protocols than that. So with an application layer, they call it next gen. With the next gen firewall, and we'll use Cisco as an example with their firepower threat defense appliances, which can be virtual or physical, they're paying attention at the application layer. And that's also referred to as deep packet inspection or application something visibility. Oh, VC, there you go. Application visibility and control. I've heard it referred to all 3 of those, but that's looking higher up in the protocol stack. So the 3 levels of firewall services are packet filtering, which any device can do, stateful inspection, which allows reply traffic, and then application layer inspection, which gives you very granular control about what's really happening underneath the covers, if you will, with those packets. And that's why red is the correct answer here. And that is on the blueprint. So I wanted to make sure I elaborated on that just for a moment. And, lucky lobster in first place. Okay, we have one more question. This is it. Question 7 of 7 for today. Multiple select. When using SSH to a non-local layer 2 switch, what is used? All right, those are great answers. I was looking for 3 of those, and for clarification, let's just talk for a moment about this question. This is a mishmash of many parts of security and access that's pretty important. So let's call this the 10.1 subnet. Also, if you're brand new to IP addressing or subnetting or variable length subnetting, there is a series I created on YouTube. It's free, just like all my content on YouTube is, and it is called Subnet Saturdays. If you want to become competent at IP subnetting, it's 12 videos long. Each of them in order is important to go through. And when you're done with those, you'll be able to do the custom subnetting, no problem. So let's imagine the 10.1 network. And let's say that this is our admin PC right here. When I say PC, it could be anything. A Linux box, Windows, Mac, doesn't matter. So this is our Linux, it's our device that we're sitting at. This is us, you and me, we're here. And then we have this hockey puck looking thing, which we will call router 1. And router 1 is providing routing services between the 10.1 network and the 10.2 network. Great. And then here we have, let's imagine we have a layer 2 switch. Okay, so that layer 2 switch is on this network. Now the question, as far as like if we're SSHing, how do we get there and how does it work? To get the SSH working, this device has to have an IP address. Even though it's a layer 2 switch, and I know that IP address is a layer 3 thing, this is going to have a switched virtual interface, even if it's a layer 2 switch that's used for managing that device. So that switched virtual interface is a logical layer 3 interface. And that's why this answer is correct, because we're going to connect logically to that over the IP network. And then to get there, for the switch to respond back, let's say the PC is at dot 100, we make an SSH request down here. When it responds back, it's going to have to use this default gateway. There are some exceptions to that, but if it's all configured correctly, that's what it's going to use. So that's why this one's correct. Also, the PC may be using its default gateway, also very likely. And then when we connect via SSH using an IP address of the switch virtual interface, it's also logically connecting us via the VTY line, one of the VTY lines on that device. And that's why these three answers are correct. And also with SSH, we're not likely to use line passwords, because those are, with SSH, we're going to be logging in usually with a user and password. That username password combination could be stored locally on the switch, or that switch could be a client of a Radius server, and we could be using Radius centrally. But either way, we're going to be using a password for a user and not a line password on the configuration. All right, now here's the deal. Everyone who has questions about any of these questions we had today, if you want elaboration or clarification, join me. I'm going to stick around for as long as it takes. Well, in the Discord server. And that way you can talk with me, ask the questions, we can elaborate, we can lab stuff up if you want to. I want to be available to help you answer your questions if you have any. So that'd be a great way for me to be able to respond and make sure I understand your question. So that'd be in the Discord server. Again, there's a link in the description for this video, and it will be the CCNA voice room. Let's see who came out on top. The answer is everybody for showing up. Thank you. Please put into your study plans every Sunday, 11 a.m. for a quiz like this one, and every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for my office hour. And the winner is Lucky Lobster. Got 5 out of 7 correct. So did Speedy B and Speedy Hair. Wow, 2 Speedies. And the reason that Lucky Lobster has a little more points, even though they all got the same amount of answers correct, was the speed and rapidity at which they answered those questions. And one of those questions only had 20 seconds, so my apologies on that one. All right, and here were, well, out of 7 questions, these 5 all had less than 30% correct. And one of these was the one that was 20 seconds to answer, so I'll take responsibility completely for that one. But there is some room for improvement, and I look forward to your growth and your studies in the world of CCNA. The Cisco CCNA is a great stepping stone that we can all use. People are getting into IT or working with IT and networking specifically as a stepping stone to bigger and better things. And that's all it is. It's a stepping stone. You'll learn the fundamentals. And as you learn those fundamentals, you get to apply them. And I've applied them for when did I get my first CCNA? Probably in 1999, I got my first CCNA, and I got my first CCIE in 2001. But the fundamentals that we've learned in CCNA, they don't change all that much over time. And as they do, they integrate new technologies, but they're used over and over and over again. So let me go ahead and get a little bit of feedback from you. So if you would, on your mobile device or your web screen, whatever, or your website, if you're logged in that way, if you give me a little bit of feedback, that'd be awesome. And for those of you who are interested, I will be on the Discord server in just a few moments to follow up regarding this quiz, and I would love to see you there if you have the time. I know that many of you are connecting from a lot of different time zones. In fact, let's have a little competition. If you would paste in the local time and include AM or PM of where you're playing this game, I would love to see that. So sometimes I ask where you're from, but go ahead and put in your local time wherever you are right now. Give the hour and the minute. I don't need seconds. And then if it is AM or PM, and that's always a hoot to see that as far as the where you're connecting from, as far as the time zone. So, and for everybody who's here after 11 p.m. and before 6 a.m., extra kudos for the dedication and the work. That is amazing. Oh, yeah. It's incredible. Thank you very much. I enjoy hanging out with you for a few minutes every week on Saturdays at 10 on Discord and 11 o'clock on Sundays here on YouTube. I also have some new content coming up. I'm going to keep that pretty close to the vest until I release it, but you're going to love it too. If you're studying for Cisco stuff, I think you're going to love it as well. All right. Thanks for that feedback, everybody. And let me send you out with a little bit of music. and look something like this, and I'll see you in Discord or at the next live event. Thanks, everybody.